Hello, BKFK kids. Coming up in this episode, Gerta challenges Sparky and Granny with a riddle.
A saber-toothed rabbit, a two-headed cornbird, and Zonklenuts. Oh, this is gonna be good.
The riddle is too hard for them, but not for Stanky.
Oh, that's easy.
Easy? Easy? We've been at this for ages.
Can you solve the riddle? But first, we have a birthday to celebrate. She is a regular voice on BKFK and she has written some stories for us that we will soon be releasing. Happy birthday to the clever and talented Heavenika! The stars of this episode are Cora as Sparky,
I'm 7 years old and I love hugging my sister.
Kathy as Granny,
I am a high school student from Arizona in the United States, and I want to give a shout out to my dog for falling asleep while I was recording.
Jace as Gerta,
I live in Indiana in the USA. I am 11 years old and I really enjoy gaming, climbing, and acting.
Micah as Kevin,
I am 8.5 years old. I live in Indiana and I really like playing Beyblades and space.
and Jude as Stanky.
I'm Jude. I'm from Ireland. I'm 7.5 years old, and I really like art.
Well done, kids. Okay, let's get on with the story. The Sabretooth Rabbit, the Cornbird, and the Zonklenuts. The Glugging Gargoyle Tavern was lively as always. Creatures from all over Magimajura sat at wooden tables, drinking strange concoctions, eating unusual snacks, and swapping tall tales. The big stone gargoyle by the fireplace seemed to watch over everyone with its glowing eyes, adding a touch of magic to the cozy scene. Granny Gigglesnort and Sparky Flarkbottom burst through the door, their cheeks pink from the chilly evening air.
Your ribbons are jingling louder than one known band.
Sparky teased as she bounced toward a table near the fire, her springy shoes squeaking with every step.
Well, at least I don't sound like a rusty hinge.
Granny retorted, her silver hair sparkling in the firelight. From behind the bar, Gerta Grimswill waved them over.
Granny! Sparky! You two troublemakers are just in time. Come, sit.
Kevin, the ever-slow zombie waiter, shuffled toward them.
What will you have?
He droned.
I'll take a steaming cup of Giggle Brew tea, extra fizz.
Granny said with a toothless grin.
I'll have a whiz-banger float.
Sparky added, her goggles slipping as she leaned forward excitedly. Kevin nodded slowly.
Coming right up.
As they settled into their chairs, Gerta wandered over.
You two look like you're in the mood for a little challenge. How about a riddle while you wait?
Sparky's blue eyes lit up.
A riddle? I love riddles. Lay it on us, Gerta.
Granny adjusted her shawl and leaned in.
Let's hear it. My old brain could use a bit of exercise.
Gerta grinned.
All right. Listen carefully. A farmer needs to get a saber-toothed rabbit, a two-headed cornbird, and a sack of Zonklenuts across a river. He has a small boat, but it can only carry him and one thing at a time. If he leaves the saber-toothed rabbit along with the two-headed cornbird, the rabbit will try to eat it. And if he leaves the cornbird alone with the Zonklenuts, the bird will gobble them up. How does the farmer get all three safely across the river?
Sparky slapped her goggles back into place.
A saber-toothed rabbit, a two-headed cornbird, and Zonklenuts. Oh, this is gonna be good.
Granny tapped her chin thoughtfully.
Let me think on this one.
They leaned over the table, Sparky scribbling on a napkin with a pencil as Granny muttered to herself.
All right, the farmer takes the rabbit first, right?
Said Sparky. Granny shook her head.
If he does that, he'll leave the cornbird and the Zonklenuts together. That bird will eat the nuts faster than you can say zonkel.
Okay, fine.
Sparky said, erasing her sketch furiously.
Then he takes the Zonklenuts first.
Granny frowned.
And leave the rabbit with the cornbird? That poor bird will be Sabretooth rabbit lunch before the farmer even gets halfway across the river.
They went back and forth, each new idea unraveling in a mess of munching and chaos.
I don't get it.
Sparky finally exclaimed, throwing her pencil down.
This is impossible.
Just then, the tavern door creaked open, and in walked Stanky. His mismatched body parts made him an odd sight, but his cheerful grin and kind heart made him welcome everywhere he went.
Evening, everybody.
Stanky called as he hobbled towards their table.
What's all this fuss about?
Gerta chuckled.
These two are tangled up in a riddle, Stanky. Care to give it a try?
Stanky's grin widened.
I don't think I'm very clever, Gerta. If Sparky and Granny can't do it, then I'm sure I can't.
Oh, don't underestimate yourself, my little cutthroat pal. I have full confidence in your brain power.
Gerta repeated the puzzle, her voice carrying across the tavern.
Cornbird,
Stanky listened carefully, nodding along.
how does the farmer get all three safely?
When she finished, he clapped his hands.
Oh, that's easy.
Easy?
Sparky cried.
Easy? We've been at this for ages.
Stanky pulled up a chair.
Here's how it's done. First, the farmer takes the two-headed cornbirds across the river and leaves it on the other side.
Granny raised an eyebrow.
Yes, but then what? Then he goes back and takes the Sabretooth rabbit across. But when he gets to the other side, he leaves the rabbit and takes the cornbirds back with him.
Sparky's goggles slipped again as she stared at him.
Wait, what? Takes the cornbird back?
Exactly. Then he leaves the cornbird on the starting side and takes the sack of Zonklenuts across the river. Once he's dropped off the nuts, he goes back one last time to get the cornbird. And there you have it. Everything is safely across.
Granny clapped her hands together, her ribbons jingling wildly.
By the whiskers of a were-rat, he's right.
Sparky's wings spun in excitement.
That's brilliant. Stanky, you're a genius.
Gerta laughed heartily, slapping Stanky on the back.
Well done, Stanky. I knew you had it in you. You've earned yourself a treat.
She handed him a plate of honey-glazed gargoyle bread and a mug of bubbling rootberry fizz.
Thanks, Gerta.
Stanky said, his grin as wide as ever. As they all dug into their snacks, Granny raised her giggle brew tea.
Here's the clever thinking. And 2 riddles.
The tavern buzzed with laughter and cheer, and even the stone gargoyle by the fireplace seemed to smile. Time for a quiz. Question 1. What 3 things did the farmer need to get across the river? A goblin, a troll, and a pie. B, a wizard, a pixie, and a wand. C, a saber-toothed rabbit, a 2-headed cornbird, and a sack of Zonklenuts. Or D, a knight, a dragon, and a sword. And the answer is C, a saber-toothed rabbit, a 2-headed cornbird, and a sack of Zonklenuts. Question 2. What would happen if the Sabretooth rabbit was left alone with the two-headed cornbird? A. They would become friends. B. The rabbit would try to eat the bird. C. They would sing a duet. Or D. They would play a game of tag. And the answer is B. The rabbit would try to eat the bird. Question 3. What would happen if the two-headed cornbird was left alone with the Zonklenuts? A. The bird would plant them. B. The bird would gobble them up. C. They would hatch into baby cornbirds. Or D. They would turn into magic beans. And the answer is B. The bird would gobble them up. Question 4. Who solved the farmer's tricky riddle? A. Granny Gigglesnort. B. Sparky Flarkbottom. C. Gerta Grimswill. Or D. Stanky. And the answer is D. Stanky. Question 5. What treat did Gerta give to the person who solved the riddle? A. A plate of worm waffles. B. A steaming cup of Giggle Brew tea. C. Honey glazed gargoyle bread and bubbling rootberry fizz. Or D. Poppy crackle crisps and a whiz-banger float. And the answer is C. Honey glazed gargoyle bread and bubbling rootberry fizz. And lastly, here's a taste of the next episode of Queen Zixi of Ix, our Patreon special story. To listen to the full story and get access to over 120 extra stories, join our Patreon community. When the soldiers of Queen Zixi ran away, they fled in so many different directions that the bewildered queen could not keep track of them. Her horse, taking fright, dashed up the mountainside and tossed Zixi into a lilac bush, after which he ran off and left her. One would think such a chain of misfortunes could not fail to daunt the bravest, but Zixi had lived too many years to allow such trifles as defeat and flight to ruin her nerves. So she calmly disentangled herself from the lilac bush and looked around to see where she was. It was very quiet and peaceful on this part of the mountainside. Her glittering army had disappeared to the last man. In the far distance, she could see the spires and turreted palaces of the city of Knoll, and behind her was a thick grove of lilac trees bearing flowers in full bloom. This lilac grove gave Zixi an idea. She pushed aside some of the branches and entered the cool, shadowy avenues between the trees. The air was heavy with the scent of the violet flowers, and tiny hummingbirds were darting here and there to thrust their long bills into the blossoms and draw out the honey for food. There were butterflies too, and a few chipmunks perched high among the branches. But Zixi walked on through the trees in deep thought. And presently she had laid new plans. For since the magic cloak was so hard to get, she wanted it more than ever. By and by, she gathered some bits of the lilac bark and dug some roots from the ground. Next, she caught 6 spotted butterflies, from the wings of which she brushed off all the round purple spots. Then she wandered on until she came upon a little spring of water bubbling from the ground. And, filling a cup-shaped leaf of the tatty plant from the spring, she mixed her bark and roots and butterfly spots in the liquid and boiled it carefully over a fire of twigs. For tatty leaves will not burn so long as there is water inside them. When her magical compound was ready, Zixi muttered an incantation and drank it in a single draught. A few moments later, the Witch Queen had disappeared, and in her place stood the likeness of a pretty young girl dressed in a simple white gown with pink ribbons at the shoulders and a pink sash around her waist. Her light brown hair was gathered into 2 long braids that hung down her back, and she had 2 big blue eyes that looked very innocent and sweet. Besides these changes, both the nose and the mouth of the girl differed in shape from those of Zixi, so that no one would have seen the slightest resemblance between the 2 people, or between Mistrust and the girl who stood in the lilac grove. The transformed Witch Queen gave a sweet, rippling laugh and glanced at her reflection in the still waters of the spring, and then the girlish face frowned, for the image glaring up at her was that of a wrinkled, toothless old hag. "I really must have that cloak," sighed the girl, and then she turned and walked out of the lilac grove and down the mountainside toward the city of Knoll.